Okay, take a few minutes and do these two problems for warm-ups, and then we'll talk about them. All right, so let's talk about them. We're going to solve for y. So what do we need to do first? Well, we need to move the 9 over. So we're going to add 9 to both sides. And then we're going to divide both sides by 3. So then y equals x plus 9 over 3. Now remember, we can't just simplify those. We could write this as x over 3 plus 9 over 3, and then simplify x over 3 plus 3 equals y. But this is how I would leave it. Okay? Now let's take a look at this one. Again, we want to get the y by itself, so we're going to move the 16x over to the other side by subtracting it from both sides. Cancels here, we get a negative 4y equals 12 minus 16x. Divide both sides by a negative 4. These cancel here, y equals, so we have 12 minus 16x over negative 4. Now, negative 4 will go into all three of those. So I'm going to factor a negative 4 out of the top. That will leave me with negative 3 plus 4x all over negative 4. And so we're going to cancel both of those. So we get y equals negative 3 plus 4x, or y equals 4x minus 3, whichever way you want to write it. Okay? All right, those are the concepts that we're going to use today to be able to talk about inverses. That is exactly what an inverse is talking about what something does to undo something else. Okay? The basic way that we do inverses is we switch the x and y values in the equation, and then we resolve that equation for y. So we have this equation here, y equals 2x plus 8. So I'm going to rewrite that by switching the x and the y. Now remember, we can also have this be f of x equals 2x plus 8. And so if it is given as f of x, which it sometimes is in the homework, just remember that f of x is the same as y, and so you can rewrite that as y equals 2x plus 8. So we're going to switch our x and our y. Nothing else changes, just the variables. So x equals 2y plus 8. Now we're going to solve for this y. How do we undo this? We subtract the 8. And so we end up with x minus 8 equals 2y. Then we divide both sides by 2. Twos cancel over here, and we get x minus 8 equals 2. Excuse me, x minus 8 divided by 2 equals y. 2 can't go into both, and so I would just leave it like this. This is the inverse of this function. Now let's think about that. What's the opposite of adding? Subtracting 8. What's the opposite of multiplying by 2? Dividing by 2. And so that's really what you're doing. Inverses just swap the x and the y. The x and y values change. So if we have this problem, it says what would the inverse of the ordered pair be? Well, these are my x's, and these are my y's. So my inverse, sometimes it's written like this, f to the negative 1 of x. It's called an inverse. Would simply be switch the x and the y's. Okay, so since x is 0 and y is 2, we're going to switch the x and y's. So now x is going to be 2 and y will be 0. Since the x is 1 here and the y is 5, we're going to switch them. X is now 5 and y is now 1. 5 and 6, so we flip-flop. 6 is now the x, 5 is now the y, and the same thing with the 9 and the 8. Okay? What is the domain? Remember that the domain is my x's. What is the range? The range is my y's. Notice the domain of this function and the range of this function are the same, and the same thing here. The range of this one and the domain of that one are the same. Okay? You try this one, please. So pause it here for just a minute to try that. All right, let's talk about it. Same thing. My x's and my y's just flip-flop. If x is 1 and y is 0, x now becomes 0, y is 1. 3, 1 becomes the pair 1, 3. 4, 2 becomes the pair 2, 4. 5, 3 becomes the pair 3, 5. And 6, 5 becomes the pair 5, 6. This is my inverse. This is my domain. This is my range. This is the domain of the first, and this is the range of this one. All right, so let's look at it when we have it with some functions. All right, we're going to do a couple of these together. 1 and 2 are pretty simple, so let's start with those. Okay, remember it says switch the y and the x. So now we're going to switch the y and the x. So now x equals y minus 2. And now we want to solve this for 2. So we're going to add 2 to both sides. So the inverse is y equals x plus 2. Notice what's the opposite of subtracting 2? Adding 2. Same thing here. Take the x and the y and just switch them. Why don't you try that one? So pause it here so you can try it. All right, let's try this one together. Work through this together. Switch your x and your y. Not the 3. It's just the variable and just the variable. So x equals 3y plus 4. Get the y by itself by subtracting the 4. Divide both sides by 3. And you get that x minus 4 over 3 equals y. 3 cannot go into either one of those, so there's nothing to simplify. All right, let's try number 4 over here together. So write this problem down. Now let's switch the x and the y's. So x equals 1/2 y minus 2. So what do I need to do first? I need to add 2 to both sides. So x plus 2 equals 1/2 y. Well, what is the opposite of 1/2? Or not, excuse me, that's the opposite. What am I doing here? 1/2 is the same thing as dividing by 2. What's the opposite or the inverse operation of dividing by 2? It would be multiplying by 2. If I do it to this side, I have to do it to this side, and I have to do it to everything, just like we did before. The 2's are going to cancel here, leaving me with a y, and I can distribute that 2 through. So I have 2x plus 4, and that's my inverse. You try this one. Let's pause it here for a minute and have you try it. Okay. Now, did you decide to distribute first? You can, or you can just switch your x and y's. It's really up to you. Let's go ahead and distribute it first because I think that's probably the easiest. So I get y equals 4x minus 2. Well, now I need to switch my x and my y's. So I say x equals 4y minus 2. And now I'm going to solve for y. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And I get 4y equals x plus 2. Oops. Okay. Now I have 4 here, so I'm going to divide by 4. So I have x plus 2 over 4 equals y, because those 4's will cancel. Now I could simplify this if I split this apart, but since it doesn't go into everything, I would probably just leave it like that. Okay. All right. I'd like you to try these two, please. So pause it here. Try those two. Write the inverse. Okay. Let's look at this one. If we don't distribute, so let's say x equals 3 times y minus 7, but I need my parentheses still. Now, before I can subtract that 7, I've got to get rid of that 3. So I could divide both sides by 3. So I get x over 3 equals y minus 7. So let's add 7 to both sides. So I get x over 3 plus 7 equals y. Now what happens if I had done it the other way? Let's say I distributed the y through. And so I had distributed the 3 through. Then I flip the x and the y's. So x equals 3y minus 21. Add the 21 to both sides. And I get 3y equals x plus 21. If I divide both sides by 3, I get x plus 21 over 3 equals y. Now those don't look like the same thing, but remember, I can rewrite this as x over 3 plus 21 over 3. But what is 21 over 3? 7. So I have x over 3 plus 7 equals y. And they are the same thing. So it doesn't matter which way you choose to do it. It's really up to you. Okay, so let's try this one. I know I don't like to work with fractions very well, so let's undo that let's go ahead and distribute that through. So let's change our x and our y. Let's go ahead and distribute that through. I could have distributed the 3 through here after I switched my x and my y as well. So that would be 2/3 y plus 2/3 times 3. But when I take 2/3 times 3, the 3's cancel, and so I get x equals 2/3 y plus 2. I can subtract the 2 from both sides, and I get x minus 2 equals 2/3 y. How do I undo this? Well, this is being multiplying by 2 and dividing by 3. So undoing multiplying by 2 would be to divide by 2. And undoing multiplying or dividing by 3 would be multiplying by 3. But if I do it to this side, I have to do it to this side as well. So these are going to cancel over here. So I've got 3/2 times x minus 2 equals y. We can also distribute the 3/2 through if we want, or we can leave it like this. If we distribute the 3/2 through, we have 3/2 x minus 3/2 times 2. Remember, that's 2 over 1. So my 2's cancel. And so I get 3/2 x minus 3 equals y. I would accept either this answer or this answer. They are the same thing, one just distributed through. It's really up to you how you choose to do that. Okay, so for tomorrow, I want you to do page 501, numbers 2 through 13. The homework is right here, and I expect you to have that done. Now remember here, we said f of x is the same thing as what? Right, we can replace that with a y. And so then you split your x and your y. Don't worry about graphing, but do identify the domain and range. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow.